Hey everybody, today I'm talking about the Palace of Mad King Ludwig. Now this is a 2 to 4 player board game by Bezier Games. It takes about an hour to an hour and a half to play. You might recognise the name, the Mad King Ludwig. It's quite a popular series of board games by Bezier. You started with the Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which was a very interesting and highly rated tile placement game where you're building all these weird and wacky rooms trying to suit the king's kind of needs. And also there's Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, where you are it's another tile placement game, but you're working with your neighbours to do certain objectives. But this one is kind of somewhere between the two, where you don't have your own unique castle or palace in this case. You are actually building a palace together, with everybody. You're all adding tiles to it, trying to complete rooms, get bonuses, get points in lots of different ways, and so on. Obviously, the objective of the game is to get as many points as you can, and you're going to get points by either completing lots of different types of rooms, or really focusing on one type of room. You're going to be collecting different swans, which you get throughout the game as you place tiles down, and also getting objectives as well, like either secret objectives or public objectives. So for example, the king might want the most of a certain type of room, or the least of a certain type of swan, and so on. So you're trying to work through all these different end game scoring criteria as best as possible. Mechanically, this game is quite simple. All you're doing is you are taking a tile from a row of tiles, and that row of tiles starts from 3, and as it goes up, it gets more and more expensive, costing more swans. I think that's 1 or 2 swans, and obviously if you wanted to get those swans higher on the board, then you have to pay the swans, but as the game goes on, they're going to shuffle down and get cheaper. And then you're going to deploy one onto the board, adding onto a tile already on the board, trying to match an exit to those certain tiles, because much like the Castles of Mad King Ludwig, you've got all the different room types, based on different colours, but in this one as well, all the different rooms have different exits on them of different colours, and you're trying to match those swans. And if you do match those swans, then you get one of those swans into your pool, which not only adds 4 points at the end of the game, but it also lets you buy more tiles or buy your preferential tiles. So yeah, that's going to be how the game's going to play. Also, when you complete certain rooms by completing all the different exits, you can get additional bonuses, and you've also got this slight almost almost like an engine building style feel to it, where every person's player board not only tracks how many rooms of a certain type you've got, but it also has certain slots on the side where you can either add new end game scoring criteria to, or you can almost rotate that same tile and flip it over to get a permanent bonus. And those bonuses are pretty cool, such as if there's a tie at the end of the game, you get the benefit of that tie, or getting discounts on buying tiles, or simply just getting a huge chunk of points. So I really do like that aspect of you can either get a further in-game scoring bonus, or you can get the bonus to benefit you throughout the game. So there's that real trade-off there, where do you want to focus on the end game, or focus on just the actual mechanically going through the game. So I do really like that. I suppose the thing that really differentiates this game to the Castles of Mad King Ludwig is the auction system, because in the Castles of Mad King Ludwig, it would have this master builder where you would set the prices of the tiles yourself, and other players would choose to pay those prices or not. Well, in this one, you're obviously just drafting them off the board, paying swans just to the bank, basically. But the cool thing about the two is that the Castles of Mad King Ludwig really didn't work well at 2 players at all, whereas the Palace of Mad King Ludwig works much better at 2 player. And additionally to that, the player interaction is a bit more cutthroat as well, because you can cut players off a bit more, and so on. The game is moderated, or comes to a halt as it progresses and more tiles are placed on the board, by a moat forming around the tiles that you're building, and basically when when the moat surrounds the whole castle, then the game is going to end. But the use of that moat is quite interesting as well in terms of player interaction, because you can, as I said, a bit like placing other tiles, you can completely shaft other players by blocking all their exits to their rooms, meaning that they can't get the bonuses at the end of the game, or by completing those rooms. So I do quite like that. It's quite interesting, and it looks quite or you can visually see the game progress as the moat is surrounding it, which is cool. But I suppose in tile placement aspects, it's very similar to the Castles of Mad King Ludwig. You're going to get very similar bonuses by completing the rooms, and so on. So yeah, mechanically, very simple tile placement game. Trying to get the bonuses, trying to get swans for end game scoring. Time investment wise, I think the game takes about, like I said, about an hour to an hour and a half to play. I think maybe with 2 players you can get it down to quite a bit quicker than that. But the game didn't outstay its welcome. It feels just about right. The kind of engine aspect of the game is quite cool as well, because you do feel like you get better as the game goes on. Collect all your different types of swans. You get points for having different, or the whole kind of array of swans. Which is cool, and obviously as you kind of have surplus swans, you can kind of choose to cash them in to get the more lucrative tiles to place onto the board. So again, there's that trade-off of getting rid of your swans, which is essentially getting rid of points in order to get the tiles you want. So you do have to weigh that up about what's going to be more kind of point effective. Replayability wise, again, there is a whole lot of tiles in this game. You're not going to go through them all in each game. And obviously the different order they come out in is going to be very different. You can choose to focus on different engine building, different end game scoring. The needs of the king are going to be different from game to game. So replayability wise is pretty decent. However, the generic feel of the game is obviously going to be very, very much the same. Interaction in this one, as I said, it's a bit more cutthroat than the other versions of the game, but it works pretty well. Aesthetically as well, it's obviously not as interesting looking as the Castles of Mad King Ludwig, because you could physically see almost like a blueprint of a castle with all these wild and wacky rooms of different shapes and sizes. This one, all the tiles are completely uniform, they're perfectly square and just fit together orthogonally, so it's not as interesting to look at. However, the shape does still kind of diversify, and again, the moat aspect makes it look quite cool. So the visual aspect is quite good. It is quite busy though, in terms of, because when you place rooms, you do have to put your tokens on them to represent they're yours. Because I said you're all building to the same castle, and remembering who built whose room is impossible without placing a token on there. And when you place a token, you're going to have to shuffle the type of room you've built onto your board. So it's quite busy in terms of housekeeping, in terms of making sure you're keeping track of everything perfectly, accurately. And also I should say as well, the tokens are quite small in the game. The actual tiles themselves are pretty small to look at, and you can't really see all the flavour of the different rooms. But the palace becomes quite big, so it's understandable that the tiles need to be quite small. So yeah, and the player boards as well are very nice. I've got no complaints about the player boards. I think they're very well done, and they work very well. Theme-wise, obviously the theme is proven to work well, and people like building castles, or in this case palaces, and all the different rooms coming together, getting bonuses from building certain rooms next to each other and so on. It works well. However, it doesn't work as well as the castles, but it very much is a sister style game, but there are quite distinct differences. Setup and teardown time as well is no real issue. Pretty standard stuff. As I said, the progression of the game is quite nice, because you are building an engine as the game goes on, and also accumulating different end game bonuses. So your strategy is going to change throughout, and scalability wise as well. I would play this more at the lower player counts, and if I was playing with 4 players, I'd much rather play the castles. But if it was 2 players, I'd undoubtedly play this one over the Castles of Mad King Ludwig. So it does have that in its kind of back pocket. And comparison-wise, obviously I'm going to compare it to the other Mad King Ludwig games, because not only aesthetically and mechanically they work similar. The scoring is very similar, the idea is very similar, but it's just those kind of subtle differences between the two. But yeah, overall, this is a perfectly pleasant tile placement game. Obviously, the niche of the game is that it does work best at 2 players as compared to the other ones. I do really like the unique player boards. I think that makes things a bit more interesting in terms of, again, the engine building or not. I almost did feel like there was a lot of things just happening by chance. I think focusing on certain strategies is more beneficial than others. I tried, when I played the game, I tried to diversify as much as possible by having all the different room types, and it really didn't pay off. And getting a whole bunch of points that way is quite unlikely, I think. However, it's quite a light game in itself, and I'm not too fussed about it. But it plays perfectly smoothly. The only thing, again, a slight niggle is the fiddliness of the housekeeping, because again, you have to track everything at all times. And if I had to choose between this one and you know, the other two versions of the game, I would put this one in the middle. The castles being my favourite by quite a distance. This one being second, and then the between two castles, which was a bit of a flop for me. But yeah, it is what it is, really. I mean, it's a perfectly decent tile placement game. If you like the idea of building that kind of palace together rather than building your own, then this one's going to probably suit you a bit better. But yeah, check it out if it appeals to you. I can't fully endorse it because I don't think it's particularly interesting. I'd always recommend, you know, its older brother before this one. But yeah, if it does appeal to you, give it a go. So that concludes my thoughts on the Palace of Mad King Ludwig. I hope you've enjoyed the review. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.